Hello and welcome to Heart Space, formerly TJ in Your Mind, a poetry podcast with myself, TJ, and featuring every month a guest poet based right here in Berlin. We talk about poetry, love, life, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and have a listen. Now let's kick off the new season with a poem from a good friend of mine. Her name is Lee. She's a poet based right here in Berlin and is a part of the Heart Space community. Here is the wonderful and talented Lee with her poem, Hubba Hubba.
The thing about love is, if I don't watch my step, I'll for sure fall in it, trip over it, dive for it. This dumb, fumbling heart bleeds out at least twice a month. Hubba hubba, thump thump. The burn starts almost instantly, and in a matter of days, my bones, my loins, my fairy tale daydreams stick a fork in me I'm done for delusion ignites, and I'll be a slave for whatever you master. I am the perfect disaster. But likely not the type of tornado you've seen on the news. More so the type that enters your life and suddenly you're somewhere over the rainbow in a land that looks a lot like Oz. And before you know which is which, I'll distract that scarecrow brain with my wits in the tit. But first, I want to do your dishes. To pick off the crusty, flaky bits from the concave in your spoons with my thumb or fuck at my tongue because at this point I'd do anything to taste you. Then it's maybe your laundry if you like, with 2 scoops of extra softener for the shirts that have the logo near your hardened heart. I'll fold your pants too, because I'm eager to be in them, and I'll sift my hands through your pockets, pretending change is the only thing I'm searching for. I'll be a whore for your chores. I want to go down to your basement and organize the dusty boxes where you keep your unfinished journals with the remnants of your unfinished love affairs, the ones that paved the piss yellow brick road for me. Then once you trust me with your daily duties, I'll move on to the daily do-me's. I won't be shy or polite about asking to intertwine our limbs in a dirty little game of where you end and I begin. I don't just do yoga for the exercise. We can practice our geometry and you can use your protractor to draw me in any shape you like. A triangle, a trapezoid, a rhombus. Math can be fun, hey, and rhombus is a sexy word to say. And while we're at it, I'll calculate all the ways you can break me and I'll perfect the algorithm that will lead to our demise. But not before a couple hundred more times. We'll have a series of little jokes and watch a series of silly shows. We'll bond over characters we'll pretend to know. I'll cook for you and we'll play house for a while. Maybe I'll even meet your mom, or at least get her to say, "Who's that?" when my voice fills the background of our weekly phone calls. I'll wonder how you'll respond and think it's cute you call your mom. I'll stay a bit longer. But then one day, when you're feeling safe, I'll stare down the barrels of your bullet hole eyes, wondering who shot you and why you never took the time to bandage up the wounds. Not that I'm anyone to judge. If the only relief from grief was stitches and a body cast, I'd never leave the hospital. But I'll penalize you for it anyway, and like a magician on a mission, I'll plot my final act, tying a straitjacket around my heart so your access becomes worthless without the key. My phone died, the internet's weak, the cow jumped over the moon. It doesn't matter, because it will all be over soon. My big finale is that I'll resent you, start to blame you for the dark parts of me you brought to light until it becomes so unbearable that I'll want to inject your same dish soap into my veins if it means scrubbing me clean of every molecule that recognizes you. I'll singe off the prints from the tips of my fingers if it disguises the person that used to enjoy sharing your breath. I'm not well. 2 shots of cyanide for the memories, a puff of methane for the jokes. But before I go and off myself over the emotions you brew, this bleeding heart goes thump thump again. Hubba hubba. Who are you?
So, that was Hubba Hubba by Lee. Say hello, Lee.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, TJ, for having me and letting me read about love, talk
Uh,
about love.
it is a pleasure to have you here. I call her Lady Lee. Don't even ask me why I call her that, but yeah.
And I call him the Messiah because, well, listen to him.
So, love, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I guess it depends on the day, but this particular poem was about all of the different stages you go through when you fall in and out of love. The beginning, kind of really passionate stages where you're super excited to get to know that person and be intimate with that person. And it's also exciting and new. And then as it evolves, it starts to get closer and it starts to get more emotional, and you are forced to be more vulnerable and, you know, kind of bond with another person, even if they're not the same type of person as you are, you know, and it becomes difficult sometimes to mesh with people, and you have to learn how to mesh with them.
Mm.
And sometimes that doesn't work. So this one particularly is also about the unmeshing and the kind of unraveling of those same relationships, and the same person that you were pining over that you loved so much, you become kind of disgusted by in a way, because I think it's your body's own defense of ridding that person of the memories and the good parts, because you kind of instinctively know maybe they're not ultimately right for you. But you go from the highest highs and the lowest lows where you really like cannot even pull yourself out of bed, and then literally one day happens and you bump into someone else and it starts all over again. So I think this poem was kind of that cycle for me of like, you never think you're ever going to talk to anyone ever again, and you know, that was the love of your life, and then in one instance it's just like, hubba. Who's that?
I like that. I like that. It is exceptionally different to my poem. The answer is always love. Um, is I don't look at the relationship paradigm. I don't look at the romantic relationship. Um, in this particular poem, there are others when I do, but in this I don't. But it still bears in mind because what you have said there, you've not negated love at all. You say yes, it starts here, it ends here, and then it starts again. So it's still the same thing. The answer is always love. This particular cycle may not have worked, but we'll begin another cycle, and hopefully to find what fits right. You know, that whole hand in glove analogy that we talk about.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's just so many different versions of love. And the romantic, more intimate kind comes with its own set of emotions and experiences. But there's so many other different types of love that um, come with other particular emotions that are both equally difficult and beautiful and joyful. And it's really such a beautiful process of life to find all of these different types of love and just find ways to make them unconditional, whatever relationship it is, a friend, a partner, a parent, sibling, your favorite coffee barista. You know, it's everywhere, and I think
Yeah.
it varies in different degrees, but it's all the same beautiful energy.
Agreed, agreed. Everything you say poetically, I always have to stop and think a little while and cogitate on it and let it go through into the brain before I have actual words.
Yeah, that's how communication happens. There's a listening period, a processing period. So take your time. We can edit this, make it quicker.
Oh no, it's unlikely I will. Primarily because I don't know how to.
Cool. Same. Unedited. Love it.
But so, um, when it comes to love generally on the grander scale, what are your views beyond the romantic and the grander scale? What are your thoughts on
Um, Not to sound cliche, and I don't think it is. I think it's just a message that we hear a lot but don't often take to heart. Is you have to love yourself. I think before you let any kind of love in, the kinds that you want, the kinds that are real, the kinds that are like truly what we're here for. you have to find a way to really, truly, authentically love yourself. And that comes with a lot of forgiveness, and that comes with a lot of reflection, and it comes with a lot of work because we live in an imperfect place. But I think finding the room, space, and time to really go through that love yourself process is so important because it just attracts higher versions of love, relationships that are easy and that are true and that are pure, rather than sometimes, the complicated ones we can get into. And I think that's always a result of not fully loving who we are. So then attracting people that don't fully love who we are either,
Okay.
So I think forgiveness has a lot to do with it.
Agreed, actually. I think also, who is it? I read somewhere quite recently, and this particular writer disputed the idea that it is impossible to love another if you cannot love yourself, and she said that it gives a lie to the actual truth of self-love. And I'm trying to remember who it was that said it and remember the full quote. But my thinking on that is, if we do not or cannot completely love ourselves as yet, if we're really lucky, we find others who can help us in that process. If we're not,
Yeah.
then we find those who don't help, and instead of trying to help us learn to love ourselves, what they do is they simply take. But I think that yes, absolutely, we should love ourselves while seeking to love others. But at the same time, I think those around us also have that same duty to us as well as to themselves. Did I make sense at all? Or did I just speak?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I got that. I think the way that I view that way of thinking is kind of the mirror effect, that we're all mirrors for one another. So when you interact with someone that's making you feel a certain way, that is somehow a reflection of how you feel about yourself, and just cause for some sort of kind of analysis of the way that person makes you feel, whether that be good or whether that be bad. And I think a lot of it has to do with your intention for love. Is that love meant to make you feel better, or do you really love them because you really love who they are?
Yes.
But I do agree. I think that's the kind of wild, kind of psychotic dance we've decided to do, with each other, is to kind of break each other's hearts and love each other and hate each other and fight and make up, and just all of in an effort to become the best versions of ourselves. And I do sadly think that some people are just on our path, and we're also on other people's path.
Yes.
To push them, or to help expand their thinking, or to help give them certain tools that they need to grow. But sometimes they grow away from you, or you grow away from them, and that's just kind of like your little dance that you dance together, and then you split off when you go dance with other people, because now you're fuller or different or more yourself.
Definitely, I absolutely agree with that. For me, the prime example of that, when I think of love, when I speak of love, and there are other episodes and podcasts when I've spoken of love, I always look at my mother as an example, because she loves me when I couldn't love her back, when I didn't love her back, when I couldn't show it, she loved me. When I was whatever, she loved me anyway. Now, there are those that could argue, well, it's a mother. Mothers are supposed to, but many mothers don't. So,
Definitely.
And that for me that is the prime example, because there's a lot of talk out there. Love those who love you and don't love the others. But I can't quite take to that. I cannot at all, because if I only love those who love me, then nothing changes. No one grows. We all stagnate together. Yay.
Yeah, no, you're so right. That's such a good point. It's like kind of just taking what you can get, in a way, versus seeing like the higher beauty in all people. And I think this love you're describing with your mom is that unconditional love that we all strive for. Like, there's nothing that you can do in her eyes that is going to take that love away from her, you know? And that's the hardest one to achieve. Like, love with no ego, love for free. I love you for free,
Yeah.
you know? And you don't have to love me back. You don't have to actually do anything, even be in my life. I love you anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that is the hardest love to achieve, because, you know, we sometimes want different things in relationships, and we have to love and respect the choices we make, you know, and that's, yeah. Oh.
There's something that keeps coming back to me. You know, our very first, oh, by the way, Lee and I attend this little poetry thing here in Berlin. And at our very first meeting, what was her name? Marie?
Yeah.
Who came, and we were talking about loving people and people coming with pure intentions. And she said, well, if people come without pure intentions, we'll love them anyway. And that has stuck with me. It's always, when people talk about, when I hear the same rhetoric, you know, if they don't love you, don't love them back. I keep hearing that in my head from her.
Yeah.
If they come with their ill intentions, we'll love them anyway.
Yeah, she'll be so happy to hear that. That's such a beautiful quote that she has said to me before, and I also like always think about, because it's so true. Like, okay, we love you anyway. Like, if that's how you're going to decide to show up, interesting choice, you know, but we love you for free. We love you anyway. And that's hard to embody, obviously, because it's hard for us to put ourselves in the minds of somebody else, but we don't know what they're going through, you know, or we don't know why they can't love themselves. So if they can't do it for them, we could try, and, you know, we could try to love them first so they can see themselves, you know.
Exactly.
I think that's like our duty in a way, you know, kind of with
There's
boundaries, of course, you know.
there's one of the quotes on that poster behind you. What is love? There's one of them that says, "Where you find no love, put love, and there you will find love." And it took me far too long to come to the understanding that putting love into wherever you find no love is a process. It's not a one-time thing. If you want to drink of water and you pick up a glass and the glass is empty, you don't just put a bit of water. You keep pouring until the glass is full. Until you or someone else can drink out of it, you keep pouring.
Yep.
And it's the same with people. Where you find no love, just keep pouring love in. Until, and we're very good at doing that with animals. We're amazing with animals. We're as patient as ever. We can wait in the rain for hours for that dog that won't come out of whatever because they're hurt. But people, they're like, well, I spoke to them twice. I did this once, and they were not responsive. What? If an animal isn't responsive for 3 hours, I'll sit and wait.
Yeah.
But people...
It's very, very difficult. Well, the animals should be more of our role models than all of these versions of love that we see in storytelling and in music and in media. I think a lot of people that aren't lucky to be born into love have a difficult time finding good role models for it, you know, because now the more and more that we remove ourselves from loving ourselves, the more, you know, difficult these relationships become, and the more toxic they become. And you know, I always go on these like rants about the stories and the movies that are out there, but truly when we're making all of these dramas so popular, these real kind of housewives dramas, you're throwing your shoes at your partner, you're screaming at each other, you're not listening to one another. Sure, it makes for great, you know, television and is addicting to watch, but that's setting such an example that that's an okay way to behave, or a okay way to let yourself kind of be a victim of. You know, thinking like if someone's going to behave that way to you, that's okay. But instead, I think we have to have more role models that are kind of showing what this unconditional love looks like.
Yeah.
And truly, I don't see it many places.
True. True. Mm. It is rather hard to find. Which means I think what I take from that, my takeaway is that we must then be the examples. We have to be those role models, and we have to, however possible, what I always call it, trying to be the very best version of ourselves at every given moment.
Mm.
And it's not easy because sometimes the very best version of me is 10%. Other times it's 110. Other times it's 200. Other times it's 50, depending on circumstances. But to try in every single moment to be the very best version of myself that I can possibly be, I've found every so often when someone has said, people have recounted something I've said at whatever point, and they said, "Oh, you said this, and I felt this way," or I I was influenced by that, and I said, "What?"
Yeah.
I could hardly remember the moment. I couldn't remember the instance. I was like, "Oh, did I?" I was like, "Wow," and it hits me that we influence other people in so many different ways, and some of the most improbable times that when we don't realize it, which tells me that we have to, at every chance we possibly can be.
Yeah. Well, the reason you don't remember it because it's not work for you. When your heart is pure, your intentions are good.
Mm.
And when you learn how to really purify your heart, you find love in every single moment because it's just the way you breathe. You're not stopping to think of how could I be love in this moment,
Mm.
even if it feels difficult. You just
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And I think that training is what the kind of all of us collectively could maybe use a little bit of a course on, myself included. It's not easy, but I think that's the goal, is to wake up and choose love every day to everyone, regardless of where they may be in their journey. And that love doesn't have to be this grand gesture, it could just be maybe choosing peace and silence over a moment you might want to respond otherwise, or kindness.
I think to finish, there was a phrase you just said. I wonder if you could repeat that. To wake up and choose love every day.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. We wake up and every day we choose love in every instance that we come across.
Ooh, I love that. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the wonderful, wonderful Lady Lee.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Oh, I feel so special. The answer is always love. No matter the question, no matter the drive, the answer is always love. In spite of depression, it'll help you thrive. The answer is always love. In season, out of season, we must always strive for a love so intense, a love so real, a love so strong so your future it'll seal. The answer is always love. When the question is asked and with a mission you are tasked, the answer is always love. When unreason reigns and a distemper claims, the answer is always love. When your faith is strong, when your faith is weak, a love so intense it leaves no room for doubt, a love so big there is no room for anything else. The answer is always love. When the bow breaks and your foundation shakes, the answer is always love. When the sun is high and with the birds you fly, the answer is always love. Remember this when you weep, and your soul you will keep. Thank you for joining us on Heart Space. It is always a pleasure to have you with us. We will return in a month with another special guest. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this poem, it, as well as a number of others, is available in my latest poetry compilation book, Perfectly Imperfect, available as a Kindle download or in print via Amazon and all major online retailers. And of course, we can be found on Instagram at heartspace_villain. We meet fairly regularly in person right here, so feel free to come join us. We'd love to welcome you. Once again, thank you for listening.